Silver was what, $29.90 on Friday? What do you think about that, by the way?
Well, I mean, yeah, it shot back down, but at 3 p.m. on Thursday, there was a $1.6 billion sale of gold futures in 3 minutes. And I don't know how much was sold in silver, but a same type of deal where it knocked the price down just like that. Well, no one does a trade like that. That's a drive-by shooting. They're doing it's desperation.
This week's specials for Miles Franklin are 2023 1-ounce silver kangaroos, only $3.19 over spot, 90% dimes and quarters, $2.75 over spot, and quarter-ounce gold eagles for $69 over melt. We have a massive inventory and cheap prices. Folks, you could text, email, or call slayer@milesfranklin.com, and I'd be happy to help. Now let's get into the video. Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are here with Andy Schekman, the legend, for another episode of our emergency silver meeting. A lot is happening right now, folks. You guys loved the last episode. And remember, folks, if you guys wanted to purchase silver from us, slayer@milesfranklin.com. You guys saw the intro. Tons of deals, weekly specials. We have a huge inventory. Just hit me up. Yeah, Andy, what's up? Is there anything you wanted to talk about? What's going on, man?
Good to see you, brother. Yes, there's a lot to talk about, but the one thing that I really wanted to talk about from the too stupid to be stupid category, I've talked a lot about how all of this is playing into an environment where the potential for the United States to lose its petrodollar status grows by the day. And yes, we signed an executive order to go green. And yes, we've let this country turn into a place that most of us who are my age or older don't recognize anymore, with lawlessness and open borders and election and judicial system questions and wokeness and cancel culture and all of the things that, you don't respect authority. You can question it when I grew up, but you respected it. Now you just don't respect it. And your teachers, your police officers, even your parents. So many of the things that made this country, I've talked with you a lot about, how much I think that is part of this whole thing. Could it be planned, or is this all too stupid to be stupid? Because in being the world reserve currency, a privilege we ought to be clinging to. And, I've talked a lot about how we're destroying that privilege, and how Jared Bernstein, the lead economic advisor of this country, advocates for losing the reserve status, and how signing an executive order to go green, which is the linchpin of the dollar hegemony, by extension, our relationship with OPEC and Saudi Arabia, and their willingness for protection to price oil globally in dollars and then take the proceeds and put it in treasuries. All of these things are changing largely because of the weaponization of the dollar, on top of everything else I just said. And I talked last week or the week before with you about how Janet Yellen was in Brazil, which is a member of the BRICS, and said we need to not just sanction Russian assets, 380 billion in forex reserves. We need to confiscate those assets and use them to fund the Ukrainian effort. About as stupid as you can get to say that in Brazil, of all places. But now stupidity is finding another level. And she was just interviewed on CNBC last week, where she said the United States is prepared to sanction Chinese banks and companies, as well as Beijing leadership, if they aid in Russia's military invasion of the Ukraine, Janet Yellen said. And we stand ready to act if we see significant violations. And, this is so crazy that we, the world reserve currency, the dollar, the hypocritical country, at least that's how they view us, can aid the Ukraine, which really isn't even our huge ally, right? I mean, we're pretending they are because of where they're geographically located. But, Russia and China are charter members of the BRICS, and they are allies. And it's not okay for China to help Russia. But it is okay for us to help the Ukraine, and we'll sanction you just like we did Russia. And she said China is entitled, thank you, Janet, to have a relationship with Russia. That's great of her. And noting that much of the trade between the two countries is seen as non-problematic by the U.S., but the provision of military aid from Beijing to Moscow will trigger sanctions. So the hypocrisy that continues to grow, and the fact that gold and silver are assets that have no counterparty liability, that cannot be confiscated or sanctioned or have default risk. And so the world, I think, is moving away from the United States, not because we are going green and we could lose the petro status as a result, not because of the craziness that we have allowed to happen in this country. I mean, it's not lost on everyone else. But the fact that we can go around and tell everyone, you can, you can't, you do this, doesn't matter that we did something similar or worse, we say you can't. And as a result, we'll sanction you. So, what is the logical outcome to that? Well, that is that all these countries bind together and find another alternative to settlement for energy. And I believe that's what you're seeing happen in gold and silver and oil. They are being remonetized around the world, and they are being used in settlement, local currencies to settle, and then these assets to act as reserve, if you will. The U.S. Treasury was always the reserve. That was part of the petro deal. We sell oil in dollars and put the reserves in treasuries. And the reserves in treasuries, well, they've been dwindling as these countries are selling treasuries and buying metal, not just gold. India, as we talked about 400 million ounces of silver the last 2 years, and those numbers are up 286% right now in February. In fact, they've accumulated almost as much so far in the first 2 months, and I know we're past the first 2 months, but those are just the numbers that we saw so far in January and February, where their numbers are up 286% from where they were last year. Last year, they bought 3,625 tons of silver, more than anyone in the world. And in the first 2 months, they bought 2,932 tons that we know of. Well, all I'm simply saying to you is this is getting real. And it's getting very real because these countries are pushing back against everything insanity, or all the insanity, everything insane that is this country right now, both internally and externally in our geopolitical affairs and in our own backyard here, where we're allowing things to happen in this country that if you're my age or older, you can't believe your eyes. I mean, this country, you were proud to be an American. You were proud to say, I voted. I put that sticker on because you knew it was a fair and impartial election. Everyone came to this country from somewhere. A guy across the street from me here, he came here from Montreal, and he became a citizen recently after, I don't know how many years. And he was so proud and sent out pictures to all of us in the neighborhood and so happy that he did it the right way, that he emigrated the right way. And all of these things that made America special, a Justice Department that looked at everyone as being innocent before guilty and presumed innocent, and would be blind in terms of making that determination instead of prejudiced and two-tiered and all of these things. You can't believe it. This is all coming together at once. And when you have further weaponization of the dollar by a country viewed as hypocritical by the countries that we would impose this upon, that are now becoming sophisticated and wealthy enough and shrewd enough to push back, like the BRICS, like China, like Russia, like India, like Saudi Arabia. This is becoming dangerous, and more so by the moment. And I just want people to understand, just when I thought it couldn't get more stupid, Janet Yellen says we're going to sanction not just the Chinese banks and companies, but the country itself. And you wonder why the central banks of the world are loading up on gold and silver and rare earths and base metals and so everything they can. And almost all of it is settling outside the dollar. So yeah, dude, this is just beginning. And it's going to be one hell of a crazy second half of 2024.
I actually showed something yesterday on my channel that goes along with India. China also switched its strategy from stacking gold to, quote, take all the silver, sticking it to U.S. short sellers and market riggers. Even someone says, my wife's in China, she speaks and reads fluent Mandarin. She told me last night, Chinese media is writing articles recommending silver as a better investment as gold gets more expensive. So it's not even just India, it's also China now. Also, they're all focusing on silver.
One of the things that right before you clicked it off, the Shanghai is bidding 30 or selling silver for $32 an ounce, or buying silver rather for $32 an ounce. This is the arbitrage we've talked about, where the traders in the West who can take silver off of the exchanges in London and in the United States off of Comex have the ability to deliver it in Shanghai at a premium. This is arbitrage. It'll go higher once no one is stupid enough to deliver at these prices, then it will continue to move higher. And you're right. If indeed they entice their populace to buy silver instead of buying gold, yeah, it could get very, very, very crazy very, very fast. And this is at the same time that the American public, if you look at the ETFs and look at the public participation, have been asleep at the switch watching Nvidia and Bitcoin. The Chinese populace are not. And if indeed they start to accumulate silver in any meaningful fashion, very quickly you could see things become overwhelmed, if you will, in terms of price, and all resistance levels broke through. You know, the Silver Academy, John Little is a very smart dude and he's a great researcher, and I'll give him that. Whether it be talking about this or his research in the military industrial complex,
Yeah.
he's an interesting dude who sees things very clearly with silver. And you know, if he's even 10% right on that, if indeed we are going to see China really focus on silver accumulation, it's a market that, you know, it's very small market in comparison to gold, in comparison to the Forex market. It's a tiny market, and one that can very quickly overrun and overwhelm short positions that have really, you know, haven't seen a injection of insane demand like that. If indeed that's the case, yeah, buckle up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Silver's a much smaller market than gold. It's also that's why it's more volatile and easier to manipulate. And that's actually what he was saying in the article, is like the Wall Street silver guys, you know, like that's just a few people that got rich off GameStop and AMC. There's levels to this though. That's a few people that push silver to $30 in a couple of days. Imagine an entire country like China. There's levels to this. If those guys could push silver to 30, just a few people that transfer their profits from GameStop, a few stocks. Imagine what an entire country could do on
Yeah,
top of
by the way,
India as well.
I was on the airplane coming back from Europe and watched the movie Dumb Money. And I would suggest everyone watch that movie. It's the story of GameStop and AMC and the guy behind it. And it's really cool story. But what it shows you, you know, the silver market is much bigger than GameStop and AMC. But what it
Yeah.
shows you is what happens when demand overwhelms short positions. And it's a movie that is incredibly entertaining. It's a true story, and it shows you just what happens when you see a very large concentrated short position that can get overwhelmed very quickly by insatiable, never-ending demand.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, I don't want to go too far into Wall Street silver, but a lot of people think that they failed. It's like I don't consider that a failure, you know, pushing silver up that high within, you know, the time period they did. And it brought, you know, that movement did push a lot of new silver stackers, and that's, I guess, the
But
goal
let's
for like.
let's let's just say they didn't. Maybe they didn't fail, but they squandered a really wonderful opportunity by the way they handled the privilege of running that site. And
Oh
they had
yeah,
a tiger
yeah,
by the tail, and they could have, if they would have done things in a different way, they could have really, really, really done a lot more for this industry.
yeah,
Instead, there were too many things that I don't have to go over. You can Google it and see it for yourself.
yeah,
um, you know, I did interviews on there on that show, and I remember when they first came up, and I
yeah.
thought, geez, you know, I knew the guy running it. I met him on Chris Marcus's 24-hour Silver Fest marathon. He was in there. We talked. He was long before he was on Wall Street Silver. And then all of a sudden, he's now moderating or being the moderator on Wall Street Silver. And I was blown away by the speed at which they gained momentum
It
in the
was
industry.
insane. It was
And they
insane.
had something special. So they, you know, people who say they failed, I mean, they didn't really fail. They brought a lot of attention, but they squandered an opportunity, that's for sure.
Yeah,
And it could have been a whole lot better. That's, I guess,
yeah.
the only thing I'll say about that.
Yeah, in the beginning, they were. I mean, they sent me their 10-ounce silver bars to give away to my audience for giveaways. Like they would pin my videos at the top of their entire subreddit. Like they really did help out. It just got messy, but yeah. Anyways, that's a sad situation, but yeah. So I also wanted to show this. article real quick to get your thoughts on it since we are talking about the Silver Academy, because this is very, very, very interesting to me. I know we mentioned a little bit beforehand. So this article came out 5 days ago titled Global Silver Report: More Silver is Used in Aerospace and Military Than Solar. This is huge in my opinion, especially when they go down here and talk about some of the numbers that they're bumping. But what do you think about that? Because we know that military and solar isn't incorporated in the annual numbers, and or military and aerospace isn't. The silver shortage is actually much worse than even this, that they try to, that they're saying with these record breaking supply deficits, or 100 million, 190 million ounces in the red this year. It's actually much, much larger than that.
If you ask yourself, why would a couple of commercial banks that are very close to the government have the largest concentrated short position in any commodity on COMEX? Why would they do that? Naked short, largely, to hold down the price. If you believe that the military industrial complex is as, let's just say, influential in the world as a lot of people do, and look at all the wars that we're seeing all over the place, whether we are involved directly or providing munitions that we're sending across the globe. If you need silver in aerospace and military applications, if this truly is the case, then indeed it would make sense why you would have these banks that would, at the behest of the government, be naked short tremendous amounts to hold down the price. And for a long time, when they were shorting the market in gold and silver, gold was the canary in the mine shaft. You could argue silver, in terms of the dollar strength and the bond market strength, but silver is a much more strategic metal. And that's why you got all of these mining execs and business people in Canada lobbying Ottawa, the government, to move it from industrial to strategic. And so, yeah, I would say that by a lot of measures, who is the military industrial complex? Is it BlackRock and Vanguard? They own everything. And it would be in their best interest to keep the price of silver lower so they can make the munitions to enrich themselves. And is that conspiracy, or is there a fine line between conspiracy and reality? And if indeed it is proven that there is silver in all of this high-tech weaponry, I told you that I was approached by a gentleman at one of my speeches in Vancouver who works for the Department of Defense as a contractor, and he said there is nearly 500 ounces in a Tomahawk cruise missile, but that's just one form of weaponry and aerospace stuff. So yes, it's a very important article, and John here again does a great job in his research and backing it up. And ask yourself, why is there not a broken out category in the Silver Institute numbers for military uses? And that would explain to me why you would see these brain dead banks that are naked short, in an environment where one would think that's suicide. So yeah, I think that article is really important.
Yeah, it's insane to read some of some of the stuff he's posted. I'm just sitting here like mind blown on how he finds it. Like I mean I do a lot of research, and some of the stuff is like I don't know where he got that from, but it's
He's
impressive.
really good,
Yeah,
and I try and give him props
yeah,
whenever I can, because his research is second to none.
yeah.
And I say that sincerely. I mean, it's pretty damn good, and he substantiates what he says in what he's talking about, and shows whether it be anecdotal or real proof that this indeed
Yeah.
is the case.
And he posts all the citations and all the charts. And, if he gets some from somewhere, he will literally spend the whole bottom half of the thing citing every single, like, it's impressive. It really is.
The current president in Mexico, which is either number one or two in the world in silver production, is on the way out. And he's behind in the polls, at least it appears he is, and he's behind in the polls to a woman, which would be the first female president in Mexico. And one of the things he's trying to do on his way out is to change the constitution of Mexico to actually ban open pit mining, and an all-out ban, and write it into the Constitution. And this presumed successor to him, this woman, evidently supports this change. And when you talk about a real catalyst for supply demand imbalance, pull all the open pit mining off the table in Mexico, and all of a sudden you will really see what a supply demand imbalance is, because of all the metal that came to the marketplace. A large portion of it, only well, let me say that of only 30% of it came from companies that specifically mine silver. So you pull that 30% out, or a large portion of it out, and shut down a good portion of the industry in Mexico. Yeah, I think you could see a massive catalyst in the price of silver. You know, it's long overdue for sure, but the supply demand imbalance, which has been systemic now for a couple of years, um, it looks to be only getting worse, whether it be by India and China gobbling up the physical, or the supply getting harder and harder to come by in a place like Mexico, saying no more open pit mining. Yeah, or just the stupidity of what's going on Comex by shorting it in what appears to be an overt effort to continue to fund the military industrial complex and make sure that they have the ability to continue to make high tech weapons. And if you need silver in it, well, where are you going to get it? And that's really what this all boils down to. And that's why I mentioned, that movie, Dumb Money. When you see real demand outpace supply, or more importantly, stick it to people who are naked short. Remember, when you are short naked, your potential loss is unlimited. And I always tell people, go back and watch the interview between Bart Chilton and Chris Marcus. Bart Chilton, the former head of the CFT, admitted that Bear Stearns went bankrupt when silver went to 21 because of their short position. So if it can happen to a bank like Bear Stearns, it sure as hell can happen to others like Bank of America, and who's got this huge short position. Why would you be short gold and silver in this environment? It just seems like the most moronic thing, unless there's something bigger behind it. So yeah, I think pull some meaningful supply off the table, and it only gets worse.
This is also really important. This put in perspective when we talk about where are we going to get it from, since US is, reliant on importing it, but also this part breaks down the price manipulation. It says by minimizing costs, companies can improve their profit margin, which is the difference between revenue and expenses. There's a collusive arrangement between, or cartel of price fixers between top ranking government officials, defense and aerospace contractors. So it goes over that it will explain not just the short selling of paper silver contracts creates manipulative silver commodity spot prices. There are no coincidences, the timing of these closures and motive behind suppressing silver usage data. And then this is a chart that I was talking about, the satellites. This is from 1957 to 2021. And over the past year, satellites skyrocketed, and there's 34.5 million ounces of silver in satellites, which now is probably double that. I mean, looking at the graph, there's a lot of silver used in, and satellites are just a tiny, tiny, tiny portion. So like you were mentioning, getting it from where, but also cost of production as well, which would be a huge factor. Like I always think of Mike Maloney's open letter to Elon Musk urging Elon to buy silver, saying, you plan to make this many Teslas by the year 2030. Well, for you, with silver at $20 is $850 million. But if you wait till silver is $100, that's $1.3 billion, whatever. He's like, you've got to be buying it. And I don't think big industry, like big tech, realizes that now,
Oh,
or
I bet a guy
understands.
like Elon, I wouldn't count him out as to have already thought
Oh
that far
yeah,
ahead. A guy like him
yeah,
would, but
yeah. But
he
others,
he's certainly a bird of a different feather.
yeah,
And if you need that kind of silver, yeah, you'd be foolish to
yeah,
be just in time with your silver acquisition. So, yeah, and it's not just Elon Musk. I mean, it's
yeah,
Sony, it's Apple, it's Samsung, it's all of these companies that need silver in order to create their products. So this is, to me, explains a large, look, if you look at a graph of all the commodities that are shorted on Comex, silver trumps them all by a huge margin. And you just ask yourself, what is it about silver that would make traders in a very concentrated group of very sophisticated, deep pocketed traders do this? And, at the end of the Bart Chilton interview, where he admits all this stuff happened and says, look, JP Morgan took over the short position, and Jamie Dimon came in and talked to Hank Paulson and Ben Bernanke, and they said, get Jamie said, I'll take it, but our book will be out of whack. We'll be over position limits in shorts. And they said, that's okay, just clean up your book and you'll be fine. And at the end of the period, he goes back to his superiors, that being Bart Chilton, and he said, look, they haven't even shortened it at all. In fact, they've increased it. They need to be prosecuted. They're in violation of the law and of antitrust law. And he was told to back down because it was a political decision. And then he died a week later, something to that, within a week or 10 days. And so
Jeez.
is it conspiracy? Is it coincidence? He admitted he was told to back down. So it's, people high up understand what's going on, but we've reached a level of sophistication and wealth and determination and aggravation by a lot of the countries in the world who we're playing right into their hand. And I'll say it again, the comment made by the head of the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and just put silver in here too. Shanghai Gold Exchange will change the current gold market and silver market, I would say, with it. And then he said this in 2014, with its consumed in the East, priced in the West arrangement. When China has the right to speak in the international gold market, the true price of gold will be revealed. Well, you can say the same thing about silver, where we've created an environment of massive rehypothecation and leverage that is detached from reality. And you take that off the table and go 1-to-1, the demand for gold and silver would be through the roof and a whole hell of a lot higher. And that is what I think these countries understand. This is a way for them to beat us without firing, God willing, and God forbid, nuclear weapons at us in a war. They can beat us by just accumulating all of the world's commodities and no longer finding significance in holding dollars or accumulating treasuries with the reserves. And in that one move, or those couple moves, that's going to do as much damage, at least in terms of financially, as any war ever would, if not more.
Wow, just strip us of all of our resources and make our dollar worthless. But that really is playing chess while we are just learning how to play checkers. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
well, and playing chess at a very high level,
Yeah,
against
yeah.
the IBM computer, or the Russian, I forgot his name, whatever his name was, that the Russian champ. That's what it is. They think in terms of decades, and we think in terms of days and weeks, and that's going to be a very big problem. So, again, they understand that when they get the chance to speak at the table, the real price will be revealed. Well, that means that they've been pricing stuff in the West using suppression to create an illusion of reality, where the dollar and the Western bond markets are strong. And for a long time, these countries weren't wealthy enough, industrialized enough, sophisticated enough to stand up. Now they are. And that's why you see India import, what, north of 500 million ounces in the last 2.5 years, and continuing. Why? Well, I mean, because they understand where we're heading, where we're heading towards, and using the suppression of the Western price to their advantage until no one is stupid enough to deliver at those prices anymore. And that's why you're seeing them slowly turn up the arbitrage knob and make silver $3 an ounce higher for purchase, or for, we'll buy it from anywhere at $3 higher than it is in the West. Well, you get a sophisticated trader who can buy tens of thousands or millions of ounces at those prices here and sell it for a $3 profit. They're all over it. They don't think about the ramifications, that that's never coming back, and they're destabilizing and destroying the future of this country potentially. They want to make a big profit. That's the way it goes. And they say people are motivated by greed and fear. That's greed. God help us when the fear sets in, when we realize just what we've done. And you follow this logic, and I would argue we're not so far away from that moment. Don't know when, but I could argue it's closer than people think.
Silver was what, $29.90 on Friday? What do you think about that, by the way?
Well, I mean, yeah, it shot back down, but at 3 p.m. on Thursday, there was a $1.6 billion sale of gold futures in 3 minutes. And I don't know how much was sold in silver, but a same type of deal, where it knocked the price down just like that. Well, no one does a trade like that. And I just that's a drive-by shooting. They're doing it's desperation, and it comes right back up,
Yep.
and you can see that every time lately they've been hitting it, it comes right back up. We are
Yeah.
playing right into their hands. So yeah, the West is doing all they can to, you know, not let gold and silver and the price move be realized by the investing public. They're much happier with them, you know, bidding up Nvidia and Bitcoin and other assets. Look, gold and silver represent, I think, a much deeper thought process
Yeah.
to the big to the countries, to the central banks. It's been considered wealth for forever, and silver is far more than just a monetary metal. It is a strategic metal, but that's the thing is that they want us to believe they're commodities. They're not. They're monetary metals and strategic at that in a world that is moving away from the dollar and from the Western system. So yeah, what do I think about it? I think it's stupidity. They keep firing bullets, and the price goes right back up, and that's why it just feels different. It feels different that there is a tremendous amount of demand, and yet the American public is asleep at the switch. Look at the drawdowns on the ETFs. Bill Holter will say that's big money taking deliveries out of the ETFs. Well, that's some of it, but it's also market participation and people selling into the rally, whether it be because they can't believe the price got up so high or the fact that they need the money. Whatever it is, the U.S. public has very, very minimalistically participated in this rally, and you know, it's being done by central banks and now the Chinese public, evidently. What happens if this all starts to accelerate and the American public wakes up? How high can it go? Higher than anyone thinks possible. But yeah, 28, 29, 30, these are all resistance and support levels that, you know, 28 seems to be the new support, 29, the
That's
new
yeah.
resistance. And of course, once we get through 30, well, you know, it could be
Sky's the
off to
limit.
the races. So I guess we'll
Yeah.
have to see, but it won't be easy, and it will go
Yeah.
two steps up and one step back. And
As it
the way that
should.
gold has gone lately, I mean, for the last year or two, we kept finding resistance. It would go up, it would get hit, go up, get hit. It was 1900 resistance, up, hit, and then it broke through. Now, then it was 2000 the resistance. Now 2100 the resistance, and now you could argue 2300 is the resistance as it keeps going up and down, and but yet moving higher. And same thing is true about silver, where you know not much more than a year ago it was 18 bucks, and here we are $10 higher, and no one's noticed it. So
Right.
you know, it's we got a
Price.
long way to go yet, but it's the tortoise, not the hare, and it certainly isn't getting the media attention that Nvidia and the other you know, tech and AI stocks and Bitcoin have been getting, and rightfully so with their appreciation. But you know, here it is quietly moving up, an asset that I would argue is more important than all of them.
They are, and that's why they're going to push those other ones. Their silver stabilizing at $28. People don't understand how big that is. We've never seen that. I don't even know if it's stabilized when it shot to $50 in 2011. I don't even know if it's stabilized at these high levels. You know, usually it just shoots right up, and we've never seen this before. Yeah, silver went to $28 before, but it never has stabilized at these prices. That's huge. Like that's a big deal. And yeah, they're going to pump, you know, Nvidia and these things because those aren't a threat to the dollar, but silver and gold are. You know, and gold are a direct threat to the dollar. They don't want you taking the power away from them and taking control of your wealth, because as soon as you transfer that fake money into gold and silver, you have taken control of your wealth. If you still have things pegged to the dollar or stocks or whatever, and the dollar goes down, that's like switching seats in the Titanic. But you know, precious metals, and I could say crypto as well, you know, those are, you know, they're detached. So they're going to want you to keep your money in things like Nvidia stocks.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
right. That's exactly right. And, you know, it's misdirection. We've talked about that before. Classic misdirection. And don't look here, look over there. And so look, you're doing the world a favor by doing these videos and opening people's eyes. And, you know, it's been a long run to get to here to see $28 stabilized market price, which again is $3+ higher in China right now. But you know how high it goes, I think higher than people think possible. That's not the reason to buy it. I mean, yeah, you can make a great profit, but what it really represents to me is much more than that, much deeper than that. And yeah, it's a hell of a financial opportunity, but it's much deeper than that because we are witnessing, you know, a battle for for something that is integral to the way of life in this world, and playing games with suppression of price and of interest rates and short positions of these commodities is playing right into the hands of the rest of the world who wants to buy everything that they can at these prices. And the fact that we don't produce it, the fact that we have put ourselves in this precarious position puts us at the mercy of the rest of the world. And you could say the same thing about a lot of things. Oil production, as an example, we've mothballed it. We've drained the strategic stockpile to the lowest levels, and we're raising the cost on all the producers for permitting and all of these things. At the same time, the rest of the world is trying to find ways to deal in oil outside the dollar. We're really putting ourselves in a bad position, and silver is no different. So I think buying it has greater significance than making money or protecting yourself from what's coming. I think this is as important of an asset and as big of an opportunity as people will see generationally. And I say that completely detached from the fact I own a metals company. I mean, honest to God, it's like, how much do you how big do the reasons have to become before that sinks into people that, yeah, this is true. It's not just a guy who owns a metals company saying it. I mean, look at the facts. Look at everything that you say. It's right in front of us. It really is right in front of us. And I think that people who are missing it are going to miss the opportunity of a generation. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It's just beginning where silver could go. Look, if you realize that the average price ratio between gold and silver has been 42 to 1 for the last 150 years, and it's coming out of the ground at 7 to 1 now after coming out of the ground at 16 to 1 for 5,000 years, just take gold right now at 23.75 and divide by 42 and you get 56.55. That's what I mean. If we woke up tomorrow to silver at $57, that's just the average ratio between gold and silver literally for over 100 years. And if you take the price of gold right now at, call it 21, 23.75 and divide it by 7, which is, maybe it's pie in the sky, maybe it's not. I mean, it is coming out of the ground at that ratio, right? At some point, the geologic or mining ratio has to sync up with reality. Well, that's 339 bucks an ounce. Is that possible? Is that crazy? No, it's really not. It's actually geological. It would be factual. It would be logical. You pull the rehypothecated suppressed COMEX price out of the equation, and that's indeed what it would be closer to, I would argue, than it is where it is now because of the leverage that has been created on the Western markets. And that will end badly, as all manipulations do. And how high it goes really is anyone's guess.
Yeah, especially since gold and silver have intrinsic value. Like the fundamentals are the most important. They outweigh any type of suppression. Whereas if it was something else, you couldn't really say that. But since these are metals that come out of the Earth's crust, that is where the the most effective type of pricing would be. And that's why it was until 1930. FDR gets in office, changes it from 16 to 1 to 75 to 1 overnight, single-handedly like devaluing silver. As you know, that was a whole separate situation. Then he, confiscated it, yada yada. But yeah, I know you have to go. I know you have a podcast in like 5 minutes, I think. So
That's
I know we,
7 today, so
yeah,
it's been a crazy day. But
yeah.
I
You've had
always love coming
7.
on with you, man, and it's always a highlight of my day. And you see things so clearly, and you have a great way of being able to explain it to the public. And I watch your stuff even when I'm not on your show, so it's always good to be here. We're gonna do this every week, and
Yeah,
because I swear to you, things are gonna get nuts before
yeah.
this year is over. So yeah, man. Anything else you want to touch on, or is that
Um,
it?
No, I mean, all I can say is Slayer at Miles Franklin, folks. We got great prices, huge inventory. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys next week. Make sure you stay tuned, and I'll be jumping out of an airplane on the 23rd. So that's gonna be fun. Not really fun, but it's gonna be fun for y'all
Oh,
will
I
have fun
can't wait to
watching it.
see this one, man.
Yeah. I'm
This is
actually
gonna be good.
my moderator actually lives in Ohio, and he is going to come with me. He's it's like 40 minutes from me, and it's two and a, it's at an airport. He's going to drive like 2.5 hours, meet up with me, and we're both going to do it together, which is cool. That I'll have like another silver stacker because he's stacked silver, so That's gonna be cool too. So
Right
yeah,
on.
it's
Well,
gonna,
you know
man.
what? You guys, maybe the three of us can do something together the week
Yeah.
after and talk about it. I'd like that very much. I can't wait to
Yeah.
see it. You just be safe
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stay well as well as everyone else out there. And
Yeah.
I look forward, my brother, to picking up with you where we left off real soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will see you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. See you guys tomorrow. Peace.